Hello all, I hope you're doing well. It seems to me that everything is now swinging rightwards, not just in Britain, but across Europe as well. And this is basically because the liberal system has completely failed to deal with immigration. I've explored many times on this channel how you get milquetoast responses to this severe crisis, and then it turns into the usual, you're evil and you're racist, and we're going to get more immigration. But this has gone on for so long, you can see that the remigration issue has now started to hit the mainstream. This is the New Statesman, for those who don't know. The New Statesman is really more of it was a centrist outlet for a while. I think now it's more kind of seen as liberal left, right on, Labour Party aligned. As you can see on the front page here at the bottom, Andrew Marr is exploring how the Labour Party can stop the Farage revolution. Yeah, good luck with that. Not exactly a big Farage fan myself, but it is an open goal for him at the moment. But anyway, the main point is here, they're speaking about the age of deportation and how the mass expulsions will transform what it means to be British. But again, typically with the liberal media, you can see they still don't get it. We are moving towards deportation as a conversation now, there's no doubt about that. It has come from the hard right. They have enforced it on the conversation. To be fair to them, they've done very well on that line. They really hammered it. I saw them using this line, remigration, when I first started using Twitter. And Twitter's not for me, but I do keep an eye on it because a lot breaks there. And it really exploded over the past year, this remigration, deportation idea. And now it's broken through to the mainstream. Anyway, the point is, mass expulsions will transform what it means to be British. Well, what does it mean to be British according to the New Statesman? It means to be a milquetoast, soft, centre-left lib. That's what it means. It means to basically stick your head in the sand to the harsh realities and pretend everything's wonderful. And deportation shows them that it's not, and it challenges their idea of being British. But to the average British person, what it means to be British is to be British. That's the point. And it doesn't feel un-British to say we'd like Britain to remain British. And I don't think it is very un-British to do that. I understand remigration won't be pretty. I understand elements of it will be hard. But the point is, the other reality, the other eventuality is going to be a lot harder now. Because again, the liberal system has created a situation which is a total mess. Things are not going well. Nobody is buying the multicultural dogma that Britain is this great success story anymore. All we're doing is chasing money, working for bosses and companies we don't really like, while we're watching our country get changed irrevocably. So obviously people are going to start looking for solutions because the mainstream has ignored them for so long and called them evil and racist and just carried on with its programme. Well, obviously the age of deportation, remigration conversation is going to come up now. The BBC was up to its old tricks as well. This is a piece they put up today. It's all about the migrant crisis, how Europe went from Merkel's "we can do it," the most naive statement of all time, and of course that "we can do it" led to all manner of attacks in Germany, usually with a lorry, a Christmas market or whatever else. And now Merkel and Germany, Germany is looking at pulling up the drawbridge, quote unquote. And again, this is the same thing as Britain. You will get it, we can handle it, stop being stupid, evil bigots, be the good liberal, put your head in the sand and go and enjoy your elite life where diversity is wonderful. But if it's not wonderful for you, shut up. And basically, I'm not going to read through the whole of this piece from the BBC, but basically, they speak about how things have gone a bit wrong, hasn't quite worked out, the quote-unquote far right are on the rise across Europe. Again, they never seem to figure out why. And they talk about Hungary for a bit and its tough stance. They obviously won't say it themselves, but one of the Hungarian politicians says they feel quite vindicated. Absolutely unbelievably, the Hungarians are being charged €1 million a day for rejecting asylum seekers. That's €365 million a year, 1 billion every 3 years. So over a decade, Hungarians are being charged over 3 billion to reject asylum seekers. They think it's worth it. And fair enough to them. It's their country. It's up to them what they do with it. But the point is, I think it's absolutely outrageous that, again, the EU behaves in this way. Again, it's just an arm of the globalist liberal system at this point. As you know, if you watch the channel regularly, I'm not against a union across Europe, but not in the shape of the EU. In fact, I think we're going to have to band together to stand up against globalist power at the moment anyway. But then, of course, they do the typical BBC thing and say, oh, it's all a myth anyway, asylum seekers still break into Hungary, so don't even bother, is essentially the underlying message there. And then they go on to speak about the abuses that migrants suffer, how some of them die in the crossings over here. And of course, on a human level, of course, you can feel sorry for people losing their lives. Of course, it's sad that they get in these stupid banana boats that are run by these criminal gangs. And I'm sure some of them are legitimate asylum seekers in there. But of course, there's no way we can know anymore. You know, how do we know who's a legitimate one and who's not? Because they'll throw their passports away. And a lot of them don't seem to be legitimate at all. And the more that we accept them, the more it's assigned to the rest of the criminal gangs and the people coming from the third world. We're open arms. You know, as I've said many times, like the Hungarians, you do need a strong line and it will stop it. And I know it's hard to implement, but again, this is a classic masculine pole. It's a hard line to implement, but once it's done, it stops the problem. And in the long run, you save a lot more lives and a lot more trouble. But instead, we've got this situation where we're soft, where we're umming and ahhing, where we keep accepting people, then a boat turns over and the liberal media are all over it. You know, oh, look at this horrible human crisis. Jeremy Corbyn's giving it the big one, you know, and the BBC are happy to see that. And of course, what that means is, you know, it just adds for more, you know, humanitarian response when it could have all been dealt with 10 years ago if we just had a hard line. Could have saved, thousands of lives at this point. Then they go on to Sweden, and of course I think they look at Sweden because Sweden is almost the cliche of the liberal European states. Everything was soft, centre-left, the Guardianista's paradise. Of course, what they don't want to say about Scandinavia is one of the reasons why it was this quote-unquote, so it was never really fully socialist, but this socialist supposed heaven is because it was a high-trust, homogenous society, you know. And let's be honest, the Scandinavians, it always drives me mad when Scandinavians try and act like they're Italians. I've seen this a lot growing up in London when you meet Scandinavians and you think, this isn't you, you know, you're being brainwashed by liberalism. Not everyone has to act like an Italian, you know. You're Swedes. That's why people like you. You know, Bjorn Borg and all this, and ABBA, you know. But the point is, the Swedes tend to be calm, quiet people who are very handsome and stoic and all that sort of stuff. And that's why people like them. And that's why their country was very peaceful and quiet. And when you bring in masses of people from the third world, surprise, surprise, crime has gone through the roof. And the BBC typically is taking the line of, oh, you know, look at this wonderful, innocent Muslim couple. And maybe they are wonderful and innocent. You know, as I said, I'm sure there are good people in every community. And, again, unfortunately, there are people who are being given a bad name by the behaviour of more. But the point is that in this frame, the BBC are very eager to say, oh, well, 10 years ago, everyone was so welcoming. Now they're all horrible and racist. You know, the people are so cruel. Now, again, I'm not defending people being mean to people or horrible. What I'm saying is there's a reason why there's been this shift in the public mood. And if you keep ignoring that Europeans feel like they're being removed in their own homeland, that they feel they're losing the very essence of their countries, of who and what they are, then you're completely missing the point and propagandising. It's just to say, oh, aren't you evil and horrible? Now, the BBC do, through gritted teeth, manage to mention that people born abroad and their children in Sweden are overrepresented in crime statistics. Wow, well, that one hurt for the BBC. But of course, they have to add Sweden's foreign ministry warns against simplistic analysis of figures. You know, don't look at the actual figures. Just do what we say. You know, it's socioeconomic issues, and in 10 years it'll all be fine, don't you know? Of course, he said that 10 years ago, and 10 years before that as well, but it doesn't seem to change. But anyway, the broader point here is that the BBC are eager to make it look like it's this crazy phantom of the evil far right that's just overtaken Europe. They, as you might imagine, end by quoting a sociology lecturer. You know, because she's going to give an objective analysis on what's going on in Sweden. And she's saying that, the government is setting the agenda to be a hostile country. You know, and it's so wrong. We need to be more welcoming. Yet welcoming forever and ever and ever. And that's going to work, isn't it? Like I said in the video a couple of days ago, at what point do Europeans say we need a new moral frame away from this liberal, it's all about being inclusive, to, not necessarily it's about being exclusive, but something more like it's about protecting the integrity of the homeland, because it's just a moral framing the other way around. When they talk about being inclusive, again, it's just a propagandizing way of saying mass migration is good, you know. Because you could easily say at the same time, again, the framing could easily be that mass migration, by its very nature, creates mass disharmony. But if the power system uses that rhetoric, that becomes what's replicated throughout the system. We've just got the opposite now. Anyways, you might imagine they end by talking about, unknown graves of people who've tried to make the journey. Again, they're trying to hit you with a gut punch to end there. That's quite a common globalist liberal tactic, make you feel really guilty about opposing their policy. You're inhumane, that's a big one they'll use. Of course, the world they're creating is far more inhumane and far more censorious, as we figured out with Graham Linehan recently. I'm going on holiday myself, as I'm sure many of us are planning to at some point, and you worry about, crossing a border now. It's insane. It's insane the state we've got to as a country. We're in this basically, woke tyranny. It's complete madness. And in this absolute insanity, the leftists still think, what we need is more woke censorship, woke insanity. You might know there's this new guy, leader of the Green Party, Zach Polansky. He has a Jewish background or something like that. And he is, on his first major performance, defends the arrest of Graham Linehan. I mean, come on, Zach. Read the mood of the country, you absolute lemon.
I know that for all of those groups, trans people have been in the sights of the nastiness and the toxicity for a long time. Now, I accept proportionality of police response is a conversation we need to have.
But do you think this was proportionate?
I think it was proportionate to arrest him. I think there's a pattern here.
Dear Lord. I mean, these wokey types, they seem like a joke and they seem silly. But as we've seen with the Labour Party, when they get power, they're psychotic. They are extremely dangerous and extremely censorious. It's really worrying who these people are when they have power. They think they have this lovey-dovey worldview. They are not built to rule, believe me. And this is why, I saw this, I thought it was a joke, but this guy on Twitter saying, on appearance alone, it's really interesting to have a party led by a gay Jewish Londoner, a northern working class Muslim, and a middle-class home counties feminist. Now that's a winning coalition. Oh man, I don't want to be mean to this guy, because let's just say he's a bit naive. This liberal fever dream that the gay Jew Londoner, the hardline Muslim, and the home counties feminist are going to join hands at the Pride March. Yeah, come on everybody, let's dance. It's not going to happen. The only reason these people are united is because they hate the Western white man. That's it. Take him away and he is being eradicated at the moment, and you'll see how well they get on. It won't be pretty. But anyway, this is again why people in Europe are going more right-wing, because they're sick of this. It's not just the immigration stuff, it's the constant promotion for everything that isn't them is somehow moral and unified against them. Can't blame people for wishing to regain their identity in their own homelands. Anyway, what we're supposed to believe when Zach Polansky isn't in some East London mosque high-fiving other Muslims who are just delighted they've got a gay Jew leading the Green Party. Yeah, come on, let's go, guys. Allahu Akbar. He's saying how they're going to replace Starmer's Labour. And again, I think this statement comes off all wrong, because I think what he means to say is, we're going to be the serious left-wing party in the country. But of course, what it sounds like when you look at his behaviour is we're going to be even more woke and radical, and we're going to be even more censorious. And, you've got quite a challenge to overcome there, given the Starminator's behaviour, but, I wouldn't put it past you, Zach. But things are looking quite rosy for old Zach when you look at the state of the Labour Party. This tweet sums up the mess they're in. An anti-corruption minister, who was chosen by Keir Starmer, has resigned after being accused of corruption. A homelessness minister resigned after making people homeless. And a housing minister, Angela Rayner, has been caught up in a tax scandal over a second home. Now, this is the sort of thing that drives me mad about the Labour Party. They always bang on about how the Tories are corrupt and doing deals with their private school mates and all this sort of thing. And yeah, that's true. The Tory party are always corrupt and doing dodgy deals. But as soon as the Labour Party come in, they're doing the same thing. Talking of Angela Rayner and her tax scandals, the worst thing you can do to a Labour MP is hold them to their own standards. Here she is calling out Tory MPs a short while ago.
Every pound of tax that's not delivered to the Chancellor and to the Exchequer means that it damages our public services, and we know the state they're in. So the former Chancellor, when he was Chancellor last summer, made it clear at the time when he was questioned that he pays all his taxes and that he's done everything appropriately, and was threatening legal letters to anyone that questioned him. Now it emerged actually that that's not true, and that there was a HMRC investigation and that he's had to pay penalties for that. I think that makes his position untenable.
Yeah, right on, Ange. You call out that evil state corruption. Make sure they're all fired. Except when you do it, of course. But we must remember, you're a good person, moral. You believe in tolerance, diversity and equality, so there's no way you should be fired. But of course, Ange can also get out of this because they have what is now a tradition of women in the Labour Party who, remember, who are strong feminists, who will tell you there are no emotional differences between men and women, and you're bigoted if you suggest so, can just turn on the waterworks and start crying. Here's Ange doing her impression of Rachel Reeves, looking for a bit of sympathy. And of course, as many people said at the time, look, maybe you feel sorry for a woman crying. It's natural for a man to feel that way. But you're in a position of power. You're supposed to be in leadership. You can't start crying when you get caught out. Well, they can start crying. And they do. And what makes it even worse is the liberal media, of course, will pick up on this. Here's Sky News right on cue. Angela Rayner. Is she a freeloader? Or is she really just a victim of misogyny? Sexist bigots strike again. Dear Lord, it's enough to drive you potty, isn't it? But this is, the perfect storm of the issue with the liberal system. Women are more emotional. If they are in leadership roles, it's not ideal to cry. It doesn't mean every single woman cries. But also when they do, again, the liberal media, which itself is enraptured in this feminist ideology, won't speak about things seriously or just try and turn it into Angela Rayner's the real victim here, don't you know, bigots, which is just classic female behaviour, not taking responsibility. But why I'm saying all of this is it's another key dimension of why people are shifting rightwards. Archetypally speaking, they want the wise king to come back, the authoritative, strong, wise leader, because they're tired of this sort of constant feminist deflection. This supposedly so lovely liberal ideology around immigration and leadership, and it just doesn't go anywhere. I mean, the Starminator, one thing you can say about him is at least he doesn't break down crying. I mean, I don't even know if he's capable of crying. Probably not sure that's even been included in his code. But the point is that at least he, maintains a strong facade, as psychotic as he is when he's, clamping down on speech and so on. Anyway, I think you get the point I'm trying to make here. It's not like the Europeans woke up one day and started thinking, oh, you know what, I'm going to vote quote-unquote far right. Not even sure it is far right anyway, most of the time. The point is the mainstream liberal system refuses to deal with the issues of the age seriously. Mass immigration, no, it's not a problem, you're just evil bigots, shut up. Well, people are going to go to the right. Illegal immigration, completely out of control. You won't implement strong, firm boundaries to stop it. No, you're all bigots. Look at this tragic, sad sob story of this guy who came over from the third world and perished in the Channel. I'm sorry it's sad, but this would have been stopped with strong policy a long time ago. Shut up, bigot. Feel bad. Listen to the women in power, you misogynist. And if they start crying, remember, it's your fault. It's out of control, and this is why people are craving something stronger, something firmer, something that will actually deal with the problems that we face. Of course, I don't think Zach Polanski and his coalition of feminists and Muslims is quite going to fit the bill there. And again, they call me evil and bigoted for even saying that. I mean, these people are out of control. Anyway, I think this sums up why people are edging rightwards, and I think it's inevitable. Just as I said before, I think the liberal system wants to keep piling people in en masse so they can try and block down that vote. That's why they're not going to stop with the mass immigration. These are my thoughts as always. However, do let me know what you think down below. Do consider subscribing to the channel if you know, and enjoy the rest of your day.